Hello everyone and welcome to a new video in our IFS Cloud video series. My name is Marcel Aușan, I'm an IFS consultant, and in this video I want to walk you through the segregation of duties functionality of IFS Cloud. It comes as no surprise that IFS Cloud is fully compliant with the SOX, with the Sarbanes-Oxley principles, which try to reduce corporate fraud and make sure that you have an auditable process and able to identify any conflicts that you might have in how you have set up your user access and permission sets in IFS Cloud. I hope you managed to watch the last video that I put out on managing and thinking about defining the permission sets. Now we will take all of those concepts one step further and show you how you can easily be SOX compliant from a segregation of duties perspective. But before going into the system, I want to walk you through the scenario that we will do today. Yeah, so basically, let's take from the Procure-to-Pay process. Normally, you have a supplier, somebody is able to create the supplier master data in the system, including bank account changes. Yeah, so this is the most important thing that we must watch out for. So whoever has access to create a supplier probably also has access to change the bank account details. Yeah, obviously then there will be somebody, a buyer normally, that will create a purchase order for that supplier, and then the supplier will deliver the goods, services, send the invoice, and then somebody from finance team will pay that supplier invoice. And it's very important in this scenario that the person that is able to manage the bank accounts in the supplier master data doesn't have access to create a purchase order or to even pay the supplier invoice. Also, the person that creates the purchase order, is important not to pay the supplier invoice. And you can imagine why. Myself, let's say if I have more access than I should in an ERP system, I go and put my IBAN number, my bank account number in the supplier, and then I don't really care about the purchase order. I let the purchase orders flow normally, and then the supplier will send their invoices for what they delivered. And obviously when that supplier invoice gets paid, I would have hit the jackpot, that all the money goes into my bank account. And obviously this is something that we want to prevent. I will show you a quick setup that we can do. We can set up quickly the segregation of duties in order to see what are our conflict areas in the permission set setup. So without further ado, I will go in the system. And here I will go to the segregation of duties menu. Yeah, and you can see we have a dedicated menu here where we can define some functional areas. Yeah, basically you can think about the functional areas as a definition which controls what is sensitive actions, let's say, in IFS Cloud. Yeah, so we will create the 3 sensitive actions: the person that can create purchase order and release a purchase order, then the action to approve a mixed payment or a supplier invoice, approving paying a supplier invoice, and then the third area that we will define is the access to change the bank account of a supplier. So I'll go ahead and just create the first functional area, which I will call it change supplier bank account. Now you can give it user-friendly name so that you know by reading the name what it's supposed to do. I can also put in the description similarly. And at this point I can finish. So I just create the headers of the functional areas, and then I will go and do the detailed setup. I will create a new one which I will call create release PO. So this is the second step in our process. I will finish. And then I will create a third area, which I will say pay or not pay supplier invoice, maybe approve mixed payment. No? Mixed payment to pay supplier invoices. Of course, you would need to have a bit of functional knowledge of IFS Cloud, yeah, to be able to identify each of these steps within the Procure-to-Pay. But I will show you really quickly what we mean. Yeah? So basically, for the change supplier bank account, yeah, if we go to the functional area, just to see the details, here we can define projection, yeah, which projections are in scope of this functional area, which projection action, like really what's the button that the user clicks, what are the entities, yeah, the different tables where users can create data, and then even projection entity actions, yeah, within each table. Let's say you have some actions like release purchase order or approve mixed payment, yeah? And then once we have defined this, we can define some conflicts, yeah? And we can give it a name. And then once we did this, we can analyze the segregation of duties. Yeah? So it's very simple functionality, but let's take it step by step. So first I will do change supplier bank account. I will need to open a supplier page for that, just to see how I reason in these cases. So we are interested in getting to the page that is able to change the bank account of a supplier. Let me just go to the other tab where I have the supplier opened. Okay, and I have my cube supplier. And now if I go to show more and I go into the payment page of the supplier, I would have the payment method tab, and inside the payment method, now if I select one of the payment method, I can go to the electronic payment address. So if I click here, it will take me to a new page, and from here I can add bank account or edit an existing bank account. So basically what I want to do is I want to put inside my functional area for changing the bank account whoever has access to electronic payment addresses. No? So in order to do that, I can debug it quickly. So in Chrome, this is done with Ctrl-Shift-I. I will open a small debugger and then see what happens when I click on the payment address. Okay, and now let me bring the debugger on this screen so you can see what happened. So I have the debugger here, and if I go to the network, I can see basically when I click on this button, it called this payment way per identity set. So, and I can look at the request. So basically when I look at the request, I can see the projection is payment address handling, and payment way per identity set is the entity set, where I can create new records. So now I go back to my functional area and I know what to put in. So basically I will just monitor for access in this projection entity, and I click on plus, and I will just say payment address is handling. Yeah, I already found it. And now my entity is payment way per identity. Yeah? So I selected this one and I save. Yeah? So this functional area will already identify, let's say, all the users that have access to press that button to go to the payment way per identity, which is this table here. If we look at page info, we can see this is payment way per identity. So we assume whoever has access here can modify bank accounts in a simplistic way. Then I go back to the other functional area. So this is all I needed to set up here. I will fully set up the other functional areas and then define conflicts for each of them. Then I go to the second step. Once we found out who's able to change bank accounts, we also want to see who can release purchase orders or create purchase order. And here we already know that the projection entity would be purchase order handling. Order handling, and the projection entity would be purchase order. Purchase order and save. And then we can do even more granular than this. So not whoever has access to the purchase order, but also who has access to the release button of a purchase order, release command. So I just create a new one. Projection is again purchase order handling. Entity would be purchase order, and the entity action would be release. And I would save it. So basically for create release PO functional area, we put whoever has access to release the PO and whoever has access to view the purchase orders. Then we go to the last step, which is approve mix payment. And for this one, I will need to go to the payment, to the different tab, and I will just type in mix payment just to find out which is the button. So basically we have a payment. Now I will not go into the functional details, but we can have a mixed payment where we can do both customer payments or supplier payments, paying supplier invoices. We will not go into the details of finding which is the supplier invoice, which is the customer invoice. We will just want to see whoever has access to approve the mixed payment. Because in some cases, once you press approve, the financial transaction will happen, the file is generated and sent to the bank, and we need to make sure that whoever approves is not able to change the supplier bank account, for example, because then they can approve payments to their own bank account. Okay, good. And now in order to see this, we will go again to debug page info. So the projection is payment handling, the entity is mixed payment, and we should find the approve button. So I go back to the functional area, and here in approve mixed payment, I go to projection entity actions. I click on plus. So my projection is payment handling. As I saw, my entity is mixed payment. And now my entity action, I don't have that many. I have approve or cancel. So I just want to tag the approve and save. Good. So now I have defined a way to identify the, let's say, sensitive actions that a person could do. And now I just need to define the conflicts. So changing supplier bank account is in conflict with the conflict. Let me just cancel new. Oh no, I need to click a new one. And I need to choose what's the conflict area from all the existing functional areas. And obviously it's conflicting with approving the mixed payment. And conflict type here I can set two options, not allowed or warning. This one should be not allowed. Once again, you will see in the segregation of duties analysis report or page, this is informational only. It's not like the user, if they have access to change the bank account and they have access to approve the mixed payment, they will get an error message when they try to approve the mixed payment. It's just for auditing purposes, so you see if your permission sets are configured correctly. So I'll just set as not allowed. So we will see everything as green, as red. And conflict name, we could say who can change bank account should not pay supplier invoice. Okay. Then we can create a new conflict. So who can approve, who can change the supplier bank account is also in conflict with creating and releasing purchase order. Yeah, let's see, maybe this is not very, the conflict type is just warning, so not that critical, because yeah, the critical one is who can change bank account and who can approve the mixed payments. Who can change bank account should not create release PO. Okay. And now if I go to the other functional areas, you should see that this inherited automatically the conflict with my change supplier bank account functional area. No? And obviously we want to create one more conflict. So whoever can approve a mixed payment is also in conflict, not just with whoever can change the supplier bank account, but also with who can create PO, but it will be just a conflict of warning. Who can create PO should not pay supplier invoices. Save. And now if we go to the create release PO, we should see both of them are here now, yeah, because if we add in one functional area the conflict, it will be visible in the other one as well, which is quite nice. Good, so now we did the initial setup, let's say, and now it's just a matter of seeing the data, yeah, how the data looks like. And for this we have the analyze segregation of duties screen, and here we could see, I just pre-filtered for my user, I have a few users with my name inside, yeah, and we can see the number of conflicts for each user. Basically, if you want, if there would be no conflicts, yeah, this list should be empty. Unfortunately, there is no other overview screen than this one, so probably if you want, you can also create like a quick report, you know, just to view the data for all the users in one go. But let's just take my user, for example. What information can we see here? So we can see the user ID, yeah, that I have conflicts in all the three areas. So conflict name is here. So who can change bank account should not create release PO, should not pay supplier invoice, and who can create PO should not pay supplier invoice. Yeah, and one of them is not allowed. So we see it in red. So we need to double check this. Yeah? And obviously, if we select all of the lines and go to the details, we could see exactly the grants that are causing the conflict. Yeah. And I hope you were able to see the last video that I put out where I talk about the defining the permission sets with the different functional roles and user roles and so on. That knowledge could come in quite handy at this point, because now we can see basically this payment address handling and payment way per identity is granted by this other permission set. Yeah, so I have 5 different permission sets that grant me this access, and then I can also I have also the access to create or release purchase orders from these 3 permission sets: purchase order full, the C test, and the C underscore all. Yeah, from here I can view the permission set if I want to. I can do some adjustments so that I revoke some of the access from these permission sets so that the conflict is resolved. No? Okay, then I can go back to the analyze segregation of duties. Yeah. And from here, I can also run some jobs if I want to refresh the cache. So there will be a background job running, analyzing all the users and the permission sets. And I can even schedule this job so that, I don't know, every week I have the job running and it's showing me the latest conflicts. No? Obviously, the conflicts that you see here are just informational only. So they don't really stop the user that has access to these critical actions, yeah, to change supplier bank account and also approve mixed payment. They will be just informational only. So if I want to take any action, which in this case should be mandatory, yeah, I would need to go in all of these permission sets and rethink how I grant the access. No? So you can see who grants access to the to approving the mixed payment. So I have all of this. And then who's granting access to change the bank account. So I should decide for this user that if he's a finance user, then he should only pay supplier invoices. If he's a master data management user, he should also have the supplier full, but not supplier full and financial full, for example. And this is how you can track easily. If we go to again to the segregation of duties, for my user ID, this is how we can easily track whenever we have conflicts. Yeah? In an ideal world, once you set up your functional areas and if all of your permission sets are correctly configured, yeah, this list, analyze segregation of duties, should be empty. If it's not empty, once again, this is not stopping the users to perform certain actions, but it's an indication for, let's say, IT, that in order to pass the let's say segregation of duties audit, they would need to take some actions on some of the permission sets. Yeah. And obviously when we discuss about functional areas here, you have a lot of freedom to define your own functional areas with your own different command buttons and so on. This can be different from customer to customer. Yeah, maybe for some customers, some actions are more sensitive than others. But I would try to explain a scenario that is common, I would say, for all the customers of an ERP system, that you should monitor whoever has access to change the bank account of a supplier, and at least who's able to pay the supplier invoices. Yeah, so at least it's not the same person. Good. That being said, I hope this was useful. Have a good rest of the day and stay safe.